In today's episode of the Full Potential Parenting Podcast, learn why nurturing your gut and the microbiome that lives within it may be the most important thing you can do to boost your immunity and your overall health. So stay tuned. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Full Potential Parenting Podcast. I'm Allison Morris, and I want to talk with you more today about the microbiome. If you haven't listened to my previous episode, please take a moment and listen to that and then come back to this one. So the microbiome is such a fascinating topic. Let's start with just some basic facts because these numbers are so interesting, and it really starts, we have to kind of go back for a little context here to the Human Genome Project, which has been completed now for many years. But right when they were doing it, they expected to find something like 200,000 genes in the human genome. And were shocked to find that instead humans have around 22,000 genes. And in another episode, we'll talk more about epigenetics and how it has to do with the gene expression. So each gene can produce certain proteins and express itself in a multitude of different ways. And that, in fact, accounts for the enormous complexity within the human body. But from a genetic point of view, it was pretty humbling to find that few genes in humans. And it put us somewhere between, I think, a flea and a fruit fly in terms of the count to the number of genes that humans have. So again, pretty humbling and not at all expected. Now consider that the number of genes in the microbes in one person's microbiome is 200 times the number of genes in the human genome, right? 200 times. So from that perspective, we are genetically very, not much human. When it comes right down to us, we are way more microbe than human, genetically speaking. So, wow, right? Again, that was unexpected. And the research that's now been done on the microbiome over the last 20 years has just been so fascinating. So here's another interesting fact about the microbiome. The weight of the cells in the microbiome is equivalent essentially to the weight of our brain, which is, just one reason why the gut is called sometimes the second brain, sometimes the third brain, because sometimes our heart is also referred to as the second brain. What does our microbiome do for us? So many different things, among other things, and this is such a huge point right now for you to understand, is that 80% of immune cells are found in our gut, 80%. So when our guts are out of balance, when we have dysbiosis in our guts, the implications for our immune system are pretty severe. We know that all sorts of different digestive ailments and some chronic diseases are based, at least in part, on an imbalance in the gut microbiome, things like irritable bowel and Crohn's and some other things that are, plague a lot of people around the globe right now. Here's another fascinating fact about our microbiome, is that they are responsible for helping produce a number of vitamins that are essential for our health, including vitamin B12, several other B vitamins, vitamin K, and so-called vitamin D, which is actually a hormone, not a vitamin. Without the right balance of microbiome, of microbial organisms in our gut, though, lots of things start to just go awry. So how do we know what's the right balance? You know, so much of it comes down to sort of, how do you feel? How are you doing? Do you have a lot of energy? Are you feeling sick? Do you have food allergies? And when I say you, it could be your child. Generally speaking, the greater the diversity in the microbiome, the healthier people are. And interestingly, the makeup of our microbiome starts during birth. So the fetus is protected from the microbiome in the mother's womb until the beginning of the birth process. And this is one reason why babies who are born vaginally tend to be healthier than those who are born via C-section, because that is their first exposure to their mother's microbiome, and that is how they populate their own gut initially. And studies have found that the microbiomes of babies who were born via C-section tend to, of course, have microbiomes more associated with the instruments that were used to deliver them. Now, of course, people have, mothers have C-sections for all sorts of reasons. So, right, if that was your experience, it's just something to know about, right? So not something to have more guilt about. If you are able, though, to deliver vaginally, that's one more reason to do so. All sorts of studies now on, say, twins have found that differences in the microbiome can account for a lot of the differences in the health differentials between the two twins, including terms of weight and obesity, actually. There are a number of studies now showing that low gut diversity may be implicated in some of the symptoms related to autism. So many reasons why getting a sort of a better understanding of the microbiome is really, really key. The gut, of course, also produces a lot of the neurotransmitters, particularly serotonin. About, I think, 75% of our serotonin is produced in our gut, and at least 50% of dopamine. So mood, hugely impacted by what's going on in our guts. So what do we do? How do we improve our the diversity of our microbiome? Obviously, a really popular way to go about doing that is to consume lots and lots of CFUs in the form of probiotics. And CFUs are colony-forming units. And there's a fair amount of controversy about whether kind of sort of off-the-shelf probiotics are useful, or in fact, whether they may be detrimental, and whether just allowing your microbiome to, say, heal itself after, say, a course of antibiotics is the better way to go. There is increasingly a whole lot of research being done on specific strains of bacteria in particular that are associated with specific things like specific mood, like depression, anxiety, other things like that. And a lot of that is kind of really promising. But the simplest thing you can do is to shift your eating habits, and also to expose yourself to a lot of different environments. So this is one reason, I think, why having animals can be beneficial to your health. I think it's one reason why they found that, gosh, where was it? Maybe in Finland or something. Certain farmers had I mean, they were like farm animals that I think even were partially living in the homes, and they were so much healthier. um, and probably because of some exposure to, again, just sort of a different environment. If you're in the soil a lot, although our soils are depleted badly, you are exposing yourself to all sorts of new microorganisms. If you can get to different places in the world, the air that you breathe will be exposing yourself. But even if it's not different cities, even different places within, your own city, if you can get to the woods, if you can get to the mountains, if you can get to the ocean, all of those will have different sort of concentrations of different things. And as we breathe, as we interact with the environment, that helps to diversify and strengthen our microbiome. But also, of course, food is huge in helping our microbiome. You probably heard that eating fermented foods can be a really good way to go. Really cheap to make your own fermented foods, and I'm not going to go into how to do that, but essentially it's, chopped vegetables, water, and some salt, and then covering that, placing in a heated place, and allowing the fermentation to take place. But the other thing that you can do is eat a lot of really good fiber foods, so prebiotics that will then feed the really good, friendly, healthy bacteria in particular and allow them to flourish. Because when left to their own devices, a natural equilibrium will develop, and the so-called bad microorganisms will be kept in check naturally just by the presence of the good ones, the beneficial ones. So what can you eat? So many things, but leeks and onions and sweet potatoes are all really good sources of that kind of fiber. Mangoes and bananas are another really good source of the prebiotic fibers. Apples as well. And of course, no coincidence, those are also really good overall for digestive health, right? Keeping us regular and all those sorts of things. So especially, this is another reason why a lot of children who struggle with behavior and mood, they're also constipated. Right? All of these things are related. It's not a surprise that they would have all those symptoms together at the same time, right? Because the underlying etiology of those is probably, at least in part, because of the microbiome being out of balance. So just eating a wide variety of foods, a diversity of foods and colors, it not only provides really great nutrient mix that we all need, but it also provides, again, a nice variety of these prebiotics. And if you know where you buy your food and you know that it's organic, or if you grow your own fruits and vegetables, which kind of thinking maybe a lot more people are going to be thinking about doing starting this year, this spring, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. But if you don't wash those vegetables, or just, maybe get the soil off of them, you'll also be increasing the variety of the microbes in your gut. And that can be a really healthy thing to do as well. Obviously, you have to be a little cautious about that if you're not quite sure where your food is from. So I hope this is giving you some more, food for thought about how to support your microbiome, why it's so important for it to remain in balance, and some different ways to make that happen. So I'm going to leave it there for now. As always, if you're looking for more support, head on over to parentingmasterclass.com, and I hope you'll tune in soon for another episode. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.